Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin. I'm a business growth expert where I help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. His name is Joe Frankie III, and he's a CEO, board member, LinkedIn coach, speaker, and consultant, co-author, mentor, and confident guest of podcast, TV, and radio. And he partners with leaders to build a LinkedIn bridge from where they are now to where they want to go. And based on demand, he's coaching on LinkedIn for leaders who want to land a new opportunity, pivot, change sectors, get promoted, and or build better merchandise for themselves on LinkedIn. And his furthest clients are in Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Germany, France, Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Canada, Thailand, Turkey, and China. And he did 3 15-minute segments for Storefront on how LinkedIn is used in business for Pakistani television. And Morgan James Publishing has taken his award-winning ebook on using LinkedIn and has put it into print, Kindle, etc., which is called LinkedIn, the 5-minute drill for executive networking success. Welcome, Joe Frankie III, and thank you for being on my show.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people that know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Well, the journey began when I graduated from high school, just like all of us did. A month later, I was in the Army and spent 4 years at the U.S. Military Academy, and then 30 years on active duty, and departed the services as a colonel, commanded at all levels. And then I was trying to pierce the veil of the corporate world. And what I found was, the corporate world didn't really need a 52-year-old at that time. And so somebody gave me some really wise advice. Says, Joe, go out there, use your multifunctional talents, work with some guys putting a deal together, start up, and use your sweat equity and get after it. And so that's basically what occurred for me, and I did that. And as I was doing that, LinkedIn came about into its own. And I didn't have that when I first got out of the Army and tried to transition, properly into the private sector. It was just new and wasn't there. And so I saw the value of the tool and started using it, found key people that we needed for our projects, in China and that kind of stuff. And then just had a normal business career, continuing to do that, working on various startups, working the wholesales, trying to, get stuff going. And then one day a friend said, hey, why don't you help us out? We want to open up a search office, to recruit executives. And I said, sure. I mean, that sounds like fun. Haven't done that before. And so it was a top 2% firm, and they trained us in how they wanted things done and what have you. And it was a great experience. And what happened to me when I was doing that is a lot of people that were out of work would contact me and say, hey, Joe, I need some help. So you'd help them with their resume and their LinkedIn profile. And what I saw over time, eventually worked with a partner and then went out on my own in executive search, is most people, especially executives, are under merchandised. In other words, they bring so much more to the table than what they either have on their resume and or their LinkedIn profile. And the benefit of the LinkedIn profile is it gives you the ability to merchandise your intellect as well as your emotional intelligence. And so properly populated, this puts you out there in a way that you can be seen. And if you can be seen properly, then you can be found. If you can be found, then you can be contacted. And, in the contact, that might be something you want to do or not, but if the phone doesn't ring, there's no opportunity. Yeah. So that's kind of how that started for me. And I was helping military people as they transition, because LinkedIn was now this tool to take what they did in the military translated into civilian vernacular and allow the civilian hiring managers to understand, okay, what did this military person do? What does he bring to the table in such a way that, you know, I can understand what he or she has done. And anyway, so as I was working through that one day, I must have been fairly successful because people started calling me at 5 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, says, you helped Joe, you know, he got an interview, you helped John, you know, he got what he wanted. And so my wife said, hey, either go back to your day job or make a business out of this. And so once she said that, she said, Joe, I'm listening to you talk to these people and you sound like you're developing officers in the Army. And then there was this big blinding flash of the obvious that all I'd done for the last 35 plus years at that time was develop people. And so this was really an extension of everything I did in the Army. Because in the Army, you're either helping a senior non-commissioned officer or an officer get to their next school, get to their next promotion, get to their next assignment, get to the next project that further develops them so that they can be considered, you know, competitive for promotion. And the same was true in the civilian sector. In other words, a lot of people had done a lot of things, but nobody can see what they did. And so that's how I ended up where I'm at today. And what we tried to do is encapsulate in a 1-hour book. And the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is write a 1-hour book with a co-author. And that's that LinkedIn, the 5-minute drill for executive networking success. And so I've coached 709 executives in 14 different countries, and those are executives, veterans, and students. The youngest I've coached is 15 years old. The oldest is 84. The bulk of them are 40 plus year olds trying to figure out what is next.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing the story. I love hearing where it all started, and yeah, that military, you know, veteran background there, you know, I'm sure has helped you a lot, you know, around the mindset stuff. And then, you know, obviously now how you're helping 700 plus people, which is amazing, you know, there on helping them to move forward, you know, especially on LinkedIn. So let's talk initially about branding, because, you know, this is a great topic that I love talking about, and we all have a personal brand, right? Whether we know it or not, we don't have to be the biggest speaker in the world to have a personal brand. You know, even our social media profiles like LinkedIn is our personal brand. So what are your thoughts around how we should be portraying ourselves on there, you know, with our branding?
Well, for example, from a LinkedIn perspective, you have the advantage of, you know, having multiple personas, and people sometimes will ask me, well, what's a persona? Well, I said, well, let's take a look at you. I was talking to a lady the other day, and I said, you have a persona as a mother, you have a persona as a wife, you have a persona as the person that you work with in this particular company, you have a persona, you know, different ways. So what is it that you want to elevate? What is it that you want people to see? And you just need to bring all of that. And sometimes the people want multiple personas, and that's not a problem. You just need to be able to, you know, define them and kind of do it in such a way that it doesn't, you know, people don't get confused, right? But the branding comes from, okay, what is it that you bring to the table? And I always start with that. What is it that you bring to the table? And somebody will give me, well, you know, I'm responsible for. And I said, look, and out here, if you are trying to get promoted, get new employment, change employment, pivot, what everybody wants to know is, what can you do? You know, can you do this? Because if you look at any job description or position specification, there's a list of things that they want done and that you're required to have. And so if you've done those things, why not have it out there? people will say, well, I'm not sure I want to put that out there. And I said, okay, put it on a note and put it in your obituary file. And he said, well, why do I want to do that? And that way, I said, when you die, somebody could say, well, you really did that. Why don't you let it work for you now? And well, I don't want to be boastful. And I said, well, did you do it? Okay. And then I asked her to describe that. And we finally got down to one key sentence. Okay, you're a project manager. And then over this last 8 years, you've done 17 projects ranging in value from $267,000 to $5.7 million, with project teams ranging from 5 to 15 people. And all of these projects were delivered on time and under budget. So that one sentence says, okay, you're a real person, you're a real project manager, you can measure your production, and you know what you bring to the table. So now you've branded yourself as a world-class project manager. And you've helped the reader, okay, discern that, okay, you're somebody I need to talk to. Otherwise, if you just say, I'm a world-class project manager and I've done a lot of project and I've worked in Australia, and I worked here, okay, so has another 5,000 project managers. So how do you differentiate yourself? And then secondly, people want certain things. Say, I don't want to work in this sector. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want to move, all that kind of stuff. Then, okay, in this branding, discern it so that the reader knows what you want. You're not wasting any time of anybody else. Sometimes this comes up, well, Joe, I don't want to put when I went to college and all that. And I said, well, that's up to you. You don't have to. I said, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see the exact date that I went to every school. And, you can do the math, and I'm at 70 or 71 years old. And they said, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, I don't want to waste anybody's time. In other words, if they do not want me based on age, that's fine with me. That saves me a phone call, putting together some pieces of paper, go in. And if that's not what they want, then you've wasted all that time where you could have been focused on something else. And those are just a couple of the rabbit holes on the branding.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love it. So interesting with how we portray ourselves, and like you said, I think it's the power of coaching, where people think that some things are not relevant, but those are the things that make us unique. And that we need to put it on there to highlight all these different aspects of us. Which is great. And so let's talk a little bit more about this on the LinkedIn side. And you mentioned before about intellect and emotional intelligence. I want to touch a bit more on emotional intelligence here, because I think it's a great topic, and I think everyone needs to have good emotional intelligence. So tell us a bit more about how we can portray that, but also have better emotional intelligence as well.
Okay, so let's take a look at kind of a gross difference between a resume and a LinkedIn profile. A resume, I look at it, it's a black and white snapshot. The bulk of it is your intellectual intelligence, like what you've done, and it's a direct response to a job description or a position specification. In other words, if you take them side by side, you're answering line by line the question. Do you have this? Do you not? And if so, how much do you have? And so I think a resume is a snapshot, and it's built against a specific requirement. A LinkedIn profile is an oil portrait of you. And so we talked a little bit about branding, and we talked a little bit about persona. Well, with an oil portrait, it can be naturalist, it can be realistic, it could be romantic, because you control the brush. And so if we want to change something on a resume, since it's a photograph, we got to take another picture. If we want to change something on the oil portrait, we go over and mix up some pigment, and we come over there and we add that one little hair on Athin's head that goes over his eye, and you could do that and you haven't changed the whole thing. So the LinkedIn profile gives you the ability to merchandise your emotional intelligence as well as your intellect. And your LinkedIn profile, people don't understand this, but it actually is your avatar at a coffee meeting or a tea meeting. Somebody opens you up, they're going to meet you. And so you want to put your best foot forward there. You don't want to show up in a raggedy shirt. If you're a professional, you don't want to give that kind of look to it. And so that's happening whether you like it or not, 130 times a day. When somebody opens up your profile, I look at it. And people will say, well, what do you think? I said, you're writing the profile for the 1 in 100. You're not writing the profile for the masses. You're writing the profile so that the one person that needs things that you have kind of finds you. And when they're on your profile, you want them to do one-stop shopping. You don't want them going anywhere else. You want them to just devour your profile. And if they do that, that's going to generate a message or a call or some sort of communication. And then from that, you decide, yes, no, continue.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. So true. It's so powerful, the profile there. And yeah, like I do it. And a lot of people actually don't think about this. Like, before you're having a meeting with someone, especially if you're meeting them for the first time, you should always look at them online. LinkedIn is definitely the first one that I go to. And if they've got anything else that's linked to that, why wouldn't you want to go in and be able to build rapport with someone, everything like that, especially if you're on the other side, if you're on the side where you're going for an interview. Like if you know who the person is that is interviewing you for whatever reason, if they sent you a calendar invite or anything like that in the business, then why would you not find out about them, right? To be able to then, connect and find some commonalities there, which is, I think, really important as well.
That's true. It is. And it becomes like, going to the quick stop, and they can do it right from their phone. You don't have to be behind a workstation. You can do it on the phone, and I think that's really important. I mean, the power of the phone for somebody to look at your complete life in a 5 to 7 minutes, to make a determination about, how they're going to approach you, I think is key. And it's up to you, you as the individual, to take care of yourself. Well, people will say, well, I don't think LinkedIn's that important. And I say, well, you can still get what you want, but here's the metrics. For every $10,000 in salary, it's going to take you about a month to get a job under the old way. So if you're a senior executive and you think you're $200,000, that's 20 months. Who's got 20 months? Nobody wants to be out of work that long. So once you're out of work and you go into the funnel, and at the end is you're back in work, the only grease in that funnel is LinkedIn.
Definitely. Love it. Let's talk about showcasing ourselves. Like you mentioned it before, and obviously we have skills that we can put into LinkedIn up to 50. And we can have recommendations, right, further down as well that we can receive or give at the same time. And I think these are really important to showcase what we're good at, or obviously the recommendations, especially because people are saying great things about us. So what do you think people should be focusing on in these skills and recommendation areas so that they really have their best foot forward when people are looking at their profile?
So the best thing that you can do for yourself is, one, understand how to build a LinkedIn profile, the basics. In the back of our book is, if you don't understand anything about it, is what I call the primer, and it's Rock the World with LinkedIn version 2.0 by Lori Ruff, which is my co-author. And when we made the book, we had to make a basic decision. I said, do we want to cover general stuff again, or do we want to teach people okay, you already know this other book. In other words, the basics of LinkedIn. And what we chose was, okay, we're going to make this on how to use LinkedIn as opposed to, hey, go here, you really need to fill this in and all that. Because her other book does a great job on that. And I still use it as a reference resource by section. And so once you've kind of mastered LinkedIn, then recommendations are very powerful. But for somebody to give you a recommendation, you have to have a good experience section, right? Because if you don't have anything there, why would I want to recommend you? You say you didn't do anything. You just got a title that you're in a job, which means you showed up to work and you backed up to the pay window every month, but you didn't do anything. So I believe that you've got to articulate, what you do. What did you bring? What did your team bring to the table? And metrics matter because that's how you get differentiated. There's qualitative metrics, that's a word picture, and there's quantitative metrics associated with a number, or some sort of up or down, increased, decreased, that kind of stuff. And with a lot of people I work with, I always tell them, if you can't articulate and show me you know how to measure your production, I can't sell you. So a client has me, he doesn't come and say, Joe, I need a new chief financial officer. He says, Joe, I need a chief financial officer that can stop this kind of hemorrhaging, this and that. There's never, hey, Joe, just go find me a chief financial officer. It comes with, tears and blood, on the piece of paper, can you do it yesterday? It's a 911 kind of call. And so you're looking for very specific things. And so how do I find them? I put search words up in the LinkedIn search box and I start searching for people. I'll put 10 of them up there and look at the first 400 and each come up. I'll rearrange those 10 words, do the next 400 and see who's consistently coming up in the top 40. And I'll do that over and over till I get to 15 and I'll work that to 8. So bottom line, if you can't show that you can measure your production and you can't articulate what you've done, then you're kind of the ones that show up in 335 out of 400. We never get to you. And that's not a mean thing. That's just reality.
Yeah, I love that. It's knowing in the background how people look at these things, right? To make sure that you're up there. It's like, if I give a different metaphor example, it's like being on the first page of Google. Very few people go to the second page of Google, right? When they're looking at stuff. So you got to make sure on LinkedIn that you're on that first page, right? There, that people are seeing you at the top of that area by doing all of these things. So I love, I love those different areas of making people, stressing the importance of that. Let's touch a bit on leadership here, because I think it's a great topic, and you've worked with a lot of leaders as well. Mm-hmm. So, what do you see as being a great leader, or what are some of these traits that, we can help ourselves to be a better leader, which obviously businesses want, at the same time?
Well, you have basically two types, and I'm just defining this. So the most difficult challenge is, I think, is when a company and people, are able to work in this company and they work alone, right? So they do real well, on this 10-year span. They produce, they get promoted, they get rewarded, all this. And then what happens is you're in a situation where, okay, in the next promotion, you've got 3 or 4 people, right, that you're supervising. And you have worked in this little cocoon, and what I find is, people are at a loss on how to, get a small group of people all on the same page and working. And you can't imagine the challenges of how people approach that. If they're lucky, they learn leadership some other place. I mean, you can learn a lot about leadership by, being in various clubs, in high school, various sports teams. You understand that there's a hierarchy, know who's in charge, that kind of stuff. So you have that group, and they just need some basic leadership training, and that can be gotten in various ways. The others, after you're 30, you've either demonstrated the potential for leadership, and people have seen it, they've recognized it, they're starting to promote you in that area. And then it's how do you finesse your leadership, how do you get the most out of your people? And I always approach it from the standpoint of you take care of the people first, you shield them. I'm responsible for everything that fails to happen. If I'm your boss, I gave you the task, and if you failed on it, it's on me. But I found that you got to give people the opportunity to fail, or they don't ever learn anything. Or they come to near failure and they come back and say, "Hey, this is going bad, sir. Sir, how do I get out of this situation?" Or I'm open to guidance, and you help them out. But I don't think you can learn to be a leader without your leader underwriting you and trying to give you projects, that are going to develop you.
Yeah, I love it, especially that last part that you said, because teaching leadership is one thing, but actually doing it and leading it and stepping outside that comfort zone is so true. I know that when I go to certain events, sometimes I've crewed before, and you become in a leadership role about what you have to do, and you're put in the deep end to some extent. But you're given a lot of support, right, to do it, and going, "Hey, we're here to support you, but you've got to lead this team, or you've got to do this," and you work together and in a real environment. And it's a great way, for smaller projects. So you should, be putting your hand up and get those opportunities. And it's like building that muscle, right? Like the gym, you do more of it, and then you become a better leader, and leading from the front, and really supporting those people around you. So I love those points that you mentioned there. And let's talk a little bit more about your award-winning ebook now on using LinkedIn.
Okay.
That was the 5-minute drill for executive networking success. So tell us, more about it.
Well, the first part of the book is I had all kinds of executives tell me, said, "Joe, I don't have time for this LinkedIn stuff. I'm an executive, I'm up there, I need to be." And I said, "You need to be seen." I said, "You're the number one salesman for this company. If you're the CEO, you got to be seen, So let's talk about how you do it and minimize your time on it." And so from that, we came up with a 5-minute drill. In other words, if you follow this drill and do these things, and it's going to take you repetitively, probably 2 weeks to get it down to 5 minutes. But you can do all of these particular things, like check on your groups, see who's posting in there. Do you want to make a comment on that? Somebody sends some messages to you. Do you want to acknowledge that, comment on it? And there's a whole template in there to follow. But it was mainly so that they didn't get tied up, wrapped around the axle, and they could, the system sees that they were there, they were active, and they did something. Now, if they wanted to spend longer time, that was up to them. But most of the people want to know, how do I get in, get out, and be seen, and save more time for the other things I want to do. So I suggested, okay, if you want to do this more than once, then do the 5-minute drill in the morning, and do the 5-minute drill, in the evening. Because, there's going to be different things that happen during the day on LinkedIn. Somebody might have commented to their like or something like that, and they could make various choices about what they wanted to do. And it kind of explained that to them. And that we do all that in the first 5 pages. Then the rest of the book is really Lori's idea on how to, maximize your time there, my ideas on, hey, there's all kinds of things you can accomplish here, but the key is having a profile. One segue to that is I did not have a website until Morgan James decided to publish the book. And I said, why do I have to have a website? And they said, well, because, certain things in the book happen. So we're going to put your website in there. And that way changes, updates, anything you want to do, you're referenced in the book. So, okay, went and got me a website. But up until that time, all of my work, all of my inquiries, my clientele basically coming to me based on them finding me on LinkedIn. And then me working with people, then word of mouth to other people. And so for the most part, most of my clients, and, I didn't advertise in 14 different countries. So they found me. And they found me by doing a search on LinkedIn. So they put a bunch of search words up in the LinkedIn search box. And I guess I was one of the ones because, I got contacted, and some I wasn't the right guy for. I said, more, that's not my thing. I refer them out to somebody that's, more in that bailiwick. But some people, a lot of them were, okay, how can you help me, have a better presence here? And, we struck up a relationship, and, I coached them through what they wanted. And I've had several companies come to me and say, Joe, we want to take everything we want to put it on the internet, and people are just going to swipe their credit card for 15 minutes at a shot and all that kind of stuff. And I said, how many companies have you done this for? We've done this for 50 coaches. And I said, I don't know how I do that. I've coached 709 people, but I've never coached the same way twice. So I don't know what I would put out there, because I do it on an individual basis based on two things. Where you at now? And let's define where you want to go. And then I'll help you engineer a LinkedIn bridge that'll get you there. Now, when I say that, part of that bridge is, hey, if this is what you really want to do, you need another year of college, and you need these 4 courses in that year. So when they define what they want, it involves work. Now, if they've already got it and they just haven't merchandised it, then we can do that. And the important point is, if you build a great foundation in LinkedIn, you can build a multi-story apartment building. But if you have a kind of a crappy foundation, you can't go up too far.
Yeah, nice. I love that. So true. With the foundational stuff and about doing the work. Yeah, you need the skills to be able to showcase certain things, and hopefully you have them. But if not, go out there and get them like that. So I love that, because that's how it works with making things happen there. And let's just talk about coaching and mentoring here, because I think it's an important topic. You've coached 700 plus people. I've done a lot of coaching, mentoring myself. Enjoy helping others, but also from our perspective now, as in us getting coached and mentored, right, in different ways. So I'd love to hear from your perspective on how important, coaching, mentoring has been for you, what it's helped you to achieve.
To me, you always need to be a perpetual student. And so that means, you're always reading, and it doesn't have to be the most current thing of the day. All of the knowledge, the bulk of the knowledge is already out there, right? So there's some really good books on that. And one of the ones I love is, and I can't think of it right now, but it was The Power of Telling a Story. And it was written by a gentleman that owned the Golden State Warriors, and Mandalay Entertainment. So he didn't have to write a book. He's a billionaire, right? But in this book, he told story after story after story that when he closed a deal, he told a story. when a deal blew up and you try to get people come back to the table, he told a story. And when he didn't tell a story, nothing happened. So he said, it was amazing. And, he took this time to really share, this experience. And so that was one of the things I learned, along with other, taking other books and combining them and looking at LinkedIn and say, okay, how can we take and solidify all of this stuff so that this works, on LinkedIn? And so I think LinkedIn gives you the power to tell multiple stories. And a lot of times I talk to people and I said, you got 2,000 characters in this experience section. Why isn't it full? You didn't do anything while you were there, And then, if you ask them the questions, it all comes out, right? Just go through a list of questions like, well, what was the most favorite thing you've done there? What was the most memorable? And they tell you a little story. And I said, well, okay, you can tell that story here. You can go over in this other place on LinkedIn and amplify that story. And then over here, since you wrote a magazine article about that story, you can put it in publications. I mean, I look at LinkedIn, when you and I first got on it, day one, right? LinkedIn issued you a skeleton of Athin, right? So bleach white skeleton. And so what your job on LinkedIn is to take and add meat to the bone. And that's ligaments, muscles, tendons, right? And so some people, they just kind of list some stuff on there. So they kind of got a little bit of face and they got a little bit of neck, and then they're kind of bleach white all the way down. But LinkedIn's kind of like the Wall Street Journal. Most people use it above the fold on the first page. But, there's pages 1 through 12. There's a finance section, an op-ed section and all this other kind of stuff. Well, LinkedIn has all that stuff. And most people don't choose to use it. But at the end of the day, when you think about it and what you want, you're in a content war with your peers. If you know what you want, then you know who your peer is, then your content has to be more, it has to be higher quality, and it has to be compelling. And if you populate a LinkedIn profile, branded in the way you want, and you tell story after story, compelling story that, you solve problems, because anybody looking for anybody on LinkedIn is looking for a problem solver. They're not looking for a friend. I mean, this is a business network. They're looking for people that can do something. And if you can do something, you're a problem solver. And so tell story after story after story that you solve problems. And a lot of times I'll get a client call and I said, well, how did you find me? And he said, well, I saw this project, where you were working on with this team on rescuing this Russian submarine. And it sounded like a very unstructured problem. And it was. There's not a manual to rescue a Russian submarine, at least at that day. And he had a very unstructured problem. And then he kind of told me about it. And I said, well, if I was going to approach it, I'd approach this, And so at the end of the day, after working with each other a while, I mean, we got together and, worked through his challenge and put a team together and, solved this problem. But the point is, whatever he searched for in trying to solve his problem, he found me. So that's what it's all about, is what is it that you want people to find? This is a little bit like fishing, right? If you go out and you want to catch a trout, if you take bologna from your bologna sandwich, I don't think you're going to have much luck. But if you use a lure or a bait that the trout is really looking for, you'll probably get trout on the end of that line. Yeah. So a lot of people out here are upset because they're not going anywhere, but they're fishing with bologna.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for great deep depthness there, and I love the analogy as well. Make sure you got the right bait for the right fish, and putting yourself in that best sense with what you're doing there. So a lot of value here today. Love that, Joe. So just as we're starting to wrap up here now, what one key piece of advice would you like to give everyone watching and listening today?
I'll share one little snippet. I was working with some clients, and I'm getting ready to send 5 candidates in, on an opportunity, and I picked. I was working with these guys, and I said, you're going to be in the second 5. Well, I already knew that the guy wanted, he was kind of had a preponderance. He was an Eagle Scout, so 3 of the first 5 I sent in were Eagle Scouts. And, in the first 5, he picked one of the Eagle Scouts. And when I was talking to the second guy, I said, well, why do you think he picked him? And I said, well, I think he was an Eagle Scout, and he kind of like, he resonated with him. I mean, when you're at that final stage, it's an emotional sale. It's not about intellectual anymore, because everybody intellectual has made it through the gate to go in there, right? And he goes, the other gentleman says, I'm an Eagle Scout. And I said, no, you're not. And he goes, Joe, I'm an Eagle Scout. And I said, no, you're not. And he goes into his wallet and he pulls out, a card that, he's got the card, that says he is one and all that kind of stuff. And I said, in my world, you're not an Eagle Scout because it's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Awesome.
I didn't know it. I didn't consider it. You were in 5 through 8, and 1 through 5 made sure they had their Eagle Scout on there. So the lesson learned on there is, if you've done it, it's not boasting, take credit for it.
Yeah. Love it. So true. Definitely put your stuff on there. Show your everything that you're about. And this is the power of having external people sometimes, because sometimes you can't think about it yourself. You get coaches, mentors there to help you to extract all this gold from you to put your best foot forward. So love it, Joe. Awesome stuff there. And yeah, we connected through our network. So I learned about your awesome journey from, being a combat veteran to now LinkedIn, coach, speaker, and consultant, among many other things. You're an awesome guy. I'm sure you continue to help leaders and companies to build better teams and take their career to the next level as well. Very grateful that we connected and look forward to working with you. So Joe, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
The main way is on LinkedIn. Joe Frankie III is the URL name, and we're at www.jfIIIassociates.com. That's the website. And I have a bookshelf on there for people that want to be entrepreneurs of oil and gas, petroleum, and a LinkedIn bookshelf, that has some of the things that we talked about today. So there's ways you can educate yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely take out Joe on all those different links. Obviously his LinkedIn profile, I'm sure you'll learn a lot, even just looking at it, let alone connecting, as well as the website and all those details, and his book, obviously. So there's some awesome value there. So definitely check that out, everybody. And I want to thank everybody for watching and listening to this show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. And I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you'll know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.